On today's episode of the Wild Party podcast, we're exploring how fungi are redefining the future of food. My guest, Kimberlie Lee, is the CEO and founder of Prime Roots, a company transforming the deli counter with a background in food science and a lifelong love of cooking. Kimberlie set out to solve a big problem: how to make sustainable eating easy for everyone, not just vegans. From flavor to nutrition, Prime Roots is proving that better food for the planet can also be better food for you. We talk about the innovation behind fungi protein, the challenges of scaling a new kind of meat, and why the next revolution in food might start with your favorite sandwich. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the Wild Party podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stephanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. Today I'm joined by Kimberlie Lee, the co-founder and CEO of Prime Roots, a company that's really changing the way we think about meat. Now, Kimberlie has built something truly extraordinary. She is making deli meats from a fungus base that really mimics the flavor and texture of traditional meat, and without the environmental impact or, of course, animal suffering. And I'm going to tell you right now, Kimberlie, I did try the products and I was super impressed, but we'll talk more about that later. Now, from her background in food science to leading one of the most innovative food tech brands in the country, Kimberlie's going to tell us what it really takes to, start a company like this, from idea to setup to running it. I mean, because there's all kinds of challenges on the way. And there's also the education portion of really starting to educate the public and the consumers, like, what does this mean and why they should try it? Because people are scared, Kimberlie. Why are they so scared to try new things? But we're going to get into all that. So, Kimberlie, welcome to the show. I have so many questions. I cannot wait to talk to you.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie.
Yeah, this is going to be really cool. Okay, so, we hear so much in the news right now specifically about, basically we're going to call it, I don't want to say alternative foods, let's say new and innovative foods. And it's always funny to me because people have that initial reaction of like, "Ooh, I don't know if I want to try that." So, why are people so scared of trying new food is my first question.
Well, I think it's when you don't know something, it can be a little bit scary, which is actually why we focus on deli meats at Prime Roots and processed meats, because deli meats are the most consumed food in America. So people make almost as many sandwiches a day as they drink cups of coffee. And so we want to make the experience really familiar. Of getting your deli meat sliced at the counter, that fresh slice that tastes better, is, healthier, and is nostalgic, just the way that you remember it. Our products also are ready to eat. And so a lot of plant-based products typically have to be cooked, and people are scared about, oh, did I season it right? I don't really know how to cook. So we're trying to take away all of those barriers that make sometimes new foods somewhat scary. So that's really why Prime Roots is positioned specifically within the deli.
Yeah, it's totally true. I mean, sometimes you just have to be like, look, you don't have to do anything. You just put it on a piece of bread and you can eat it. And I agree. I'm a quick service girl. I like to eat very quickly on the run. I'm a million things going on in my life, as you do. So take me back to the beginning. So you really grew up in a family that was, very interested in food, right? You guys, it was something that was important to your family. So was it something that early on you just like maybe even thought about, like, I might want to start a company that is based in like food products? Or what was your background really? Take us back to the beginning.
So my mom's a chef, and so I just was really passionate about food my entire life, and ate well, very, very, very well growing up. and just love being able to surprise, delight, and bring people together around food, which is a big motivation for starting Prime Roots. And, I think the other motivator was really the impact behind what food can do on, our bodies, like personally, our communities, really the planet too. There's so many impacts and so much connectivity between the food that we eat and the impact that we make on the world. And so really wanted to do something that aligned with my values.
And that's something that's so important, I think, to everyone at this point is like the ease and access of food, right? So we go about our days and we know we have to eat to fuel our body, but sometimes we're in such a rush, we don't really think about the overall impact, not only to our bodies, but like you said, to the environment and to what it's doing to the world. So when you were, thinking about starting a business, were you first like, I'm going to do a plant-based business? Was that always the goal?
I always wanted to do something that made a big impact. So that really was the goal. So, for me, it was very driven by like environmental impact that I wanted to create. Because the climate crisis is a huge problem. But, obviously there food is very personal and it touches everything. Whether it be community issues, or, access, obviously animal welfare. There's just so many things that it touches. So a lot of positive externalities that come from, starting an impact-based business, especially one that's rooted in food.
And I know you went to UC Berkeley. So when you were in school, was food service something that you were studying? Were you already like formulating the idea for this company?
Not directly. So I was in a program called the UC Berkeley Alternative Meat Lab. So it was the first really program dedicated to looking into the problems and solutions around alternative proteins, like how do we feed, 10 billion people by 2050, sustainably, and cost effectively. So that was really kind of the premise of it. And then it led to starting Prime Roots. But once again, like really, really rooted in that impact that we can have. And I do think that, we're talking about quick, convenient foods. There is like a huge epidemic of just ultra processed foods and just like tons of artificial things in our food system um and just everything from preservatives to, like artificial ingredients that just weren't there a long time ago and also are not in the food system in many developed countries. So in the US specifically, there's like a really big problem that we're also kind of seeking to solve, which is especially with deli meats, there's so many preservatives and nitrates and um it's literally giving people cancer. Like the World Health Organization has deemed nitrates as a class 1 carcinogen. It's just like smoking cigarettes, which we also thought like 50, 60 years ago was good. So I think, with problems, you have to have solutions. And that's like the biggest thing that drove me to start the company is having a impact on the world, in all different facets of what impact can be.
Yeah, it's true. It's like we sit there and we look back on things that we held as truths at one point, and we're like, wow, that was a really bad idea. Like doctors used to prescribe cigarettes like a million years ago. It was so crazy to me. But we've heard other like brands launch on the market what we'll call, I'm going to call them innovative meats, right? Innovative plant-based meats. And they started getting a lot of blowback because, like you said, they didn't seem to be necessarily healthier. So your product is actually fungi based. So talk a little bit about like why you decided on that as the base and then what makes the Prime Roots experience so different. So we're not having all those chemicals and things like that you said.
Yeah, so we're proudly fungi based, and we use what's called mycelium for those who are familiar. For those who are not, think of it like the roots of mushrooms. Mycelium is really cool if you do like a quick search on it. You'll find some of the sci-fi stuff, but in like practice, it's such a miraculous part of the fungi world. It can be used to remediate soils. For us, it's our main source of protein. And I'd liken it raw to like chicken breast, um, in texture, where it has that like fibrosity of meat. It's kind of white in color. It has a bit of umami taste to it, and it's all grown via fermentation. So, and a natural process in which the fungi are being fed simple sugars, and that they're growing, these long fibers, and we harvest that and we literally make meat with it. So we're, putting them through a meat grinder. We're actually putting them into like the ham nettings, and we're roasting it. And obviously all of this is completely plant-based, but we're using a base that is a whole food source of protein that at its in its natural format is similar to meat. So traditionally how plant-based meats are made is you take like soy or peas or wheat like gluten, and you're processing the plant protein part using like usually it's like solvents like hexane, and then you're extruding that, and it's a very I'd say it is a highly processed product, in that it's very far from the original format in the plant form. Whereas for us, we're actually using the whole food protein, with the fiber, with the protein, with the natural fats. And we're getting that texture, the taste, all the good parts of meat, without any of the baggage. And the kind of nerdy reason we use fungi is because so animals were actually descended from fungi, and so it would make sense that the fungi kingdom, it's a whole kingdom, has a lot more of the answers that we're looking for. So, natural B12 vitamins or just B vitamins are more abundant in fungi than they are in plants, especially in our products. So we're able to, have a really nutritious product, that has all of the attributes that meat eaters and non-meat eaters can, get behind and, enjoy.
Yeah, the B12 is something that when I first went vegan, that's all I heard about is people are like, B, you have to get your B vitamins, B12. And honestly, before that, when I was just living a vegetarian life, I never really thought about that. But as I've become more educated, I'm like, oh, I see how you need to get different vitamins. So it's good to hear that that was something that was also in your thought process as well. And you just actually taught me something. I did not know that about fungi, that it was so high in B. So I'm even more excited now. That's pretty awesome. So did you come about this as let's just call this your base ingredient when you were in the program in Berkeley, or was this something that along the way you found as a solution to what you were really trying to create?
At Berkeley is really when we knew that the solutions for the industry's challenges, which were, we saw the writing on the wall for, like the Beyond Meats, where there would be a backlash against ultra processed. Because I personally, I would try it just because I wanted to try it to see what was out there, but I personally didn't want to eat these products, because you look at the ingredient list, they're super long. They don't even really replicate the texture or taste of meat, so the satiety wasn't there. Like, it's a little bit better than tofu, but why eat something so processed? And so I could see that, and so I wanted to make something that actually had that meaty taste, texture, the craveability, of like a great deli sandwich. And so, the wanting to use fungi was the very, very, very beginning. Like we knew that was what the direction was going to be. And then, so it took like the 5 years of just research and development just to get to a point where we could check all of the boxes. Would have been much faster if we said, hey, we're okay to use methyl cellulose and all these chemicals and ingredients that a lot of companies will use as shortcuts. So we wanted to really take our time, and develop the best product for both, like I mentioned, like meat eaters and, plant lovers, because for us, like we are really targeting flexitarians and meat eaters with our product. And the reason for that is because, if you're vegan, vegetarian, you are doing great by the planet. You are doing great by your health already. And of course, we love people trying our products, embracing our products, and our products are 100% vegan down to like, every single ingredient is vegan. Um, and for us, like if we are not able to tap into meat eaters and get them to swap out their sandwiches every day, every week, every month, we're not going to make an impact as a whole. Like I think a lot of people are in this line of work, or they're, vegan or vegetarian personally because they want to make an impact. like when I started the company, I wanted to make that impact, but amplify it, millions and millions of times. And so that really has to come from more meat eaters embracing these solutions. Because it is most definitely a lot harder to get another percent of people to become vegan than it is to get all meat eaters to eat vegetables or eat fungi like once a week or once a month because most people already eat veggies.
And it's crazy too because people don't, so, I say people, but many people don't pay attention to what they eat. So the question I get, and you've probably gotten a lot, when you decide you're gonna, eat vegan, people go, well, what are you gonna eat? Like they think by eating vegan, it like eliminates 99% of the food out there when really it opens up a huge range of food because then I feel like you're more willing to try different vegetables, try different fruits, try different cooking methods, different combinations and things like that. I found like I became way more creative and my food's way more interesting now instead of just being like, okay, here's my lump of rice and my lump of animal protein, which is what a lot of people eat. I'm like, you don't understand. My world is way bigger than yours because you have boxed yourself in to what you think you can eat. And for me, I realized I can eat so many different things. And it's become more exciting for me. So I like that, with products like Prime Roots, that you're really giving people the opportunity to open their eyes and to take out the scary, right? So it's a little bit more familiar, but you're like, look, understand what's in this. It's a fungi base. And people are like, oh, I didn't know we could eat that, right? That's got to be exciting for you, like to really open. So education then for Prime Roots is probably a huge part of your marketing. How are you going about that to really get the message out that, this is a different product, fungi based, and it's really, not only healthy, but it's super tasty.
Well, I'd say anyone who's listening, you probably know people who eat meat. And so the biggest impact you can have, aside from obviously personally consuming plant-based, is to get your meat eating colleagues, friends, family to try and embrace plant-based foods. And like why we exist is to make that easier. Because I think it is difficult to go from, lump of meat, lump of rice to, hey, try this tofu thing. And people don't realize there's so many types of tofu and like how you prepare it really, really makes a difference. Um, for us, it's, like it's a sandwich. And a lot of people know why. I think especially for convincing meat eaters, it's really about like why is it better than what you're currently eating without compromising anything, right? I think a lot of people know that deli meats are not the best for you. And so we're the only truly nitrate-free option on the market because even the natural brands of deli meats, they're still using nitrates in the form of like celery salt and a lot of other sneaky ingredients that are still nitrates that are going to give you cancer. And people are feeding it to their kids, just thinking that, they're doing the right thing, they're doing the good thing for their kids. But really, the best thing is to either not consume any processed deli meats or switch to something like a Prime Roots. And so that awareness is like really, really key and that familiarity where it's like, it's the same convenience, the same sandwich. You can just make it actually better.
Yeah, I mean, and it's convenience for us, especially in America, that, people just want that. They're like, it needs to be easy for me. I can't have to cook everything that I'm going to eat. I just don't have the time. So when you were in the R&D phase and you were, going about figuring out what your base was going to be, how you were going to create it, what was the next step then? Were you actually just testing recipes first, or did it more come like from the lab side of you were looking for a specific consistency, flavor, and nutritional value? Or were you really just like in the kitchen putting stuff together and saying, well, this tastes and looks good. How could we then reproduce this at scale?
It's a little bit of everything. Like what we do is really like art, science, culinary, like all together. And so, we have nutritional targets, we had flavor targets, and really try to figure out how to get to the place where you can have a product that is no compromises for all eaters. So whether it's a meat eater that, cares about, always if you're vegan, probably a million times have been like, where do you get your protein from? Making sure the product has protein, making sure the product has the right nutrients that people know, expect. And for, the plant-based eater, it's, there is a lot of backlash against ultra-processed plant proteins and meat alternatives. It's making sure that the ingredient list and the process is in line with what all eaters are looking for. So I think it took a while because it's like getting to a place where you can actually check all the boxes and not compromise is, easier said than done.
It is definitely, and we go in with some good ideas and then think about, well, how would I actually pull that off? But you seem to be doing it. So you had a really great launch in the market. People are really picking up on it. As far as the branding, definitely, I feel like people are more recognizable, the Prime Newts brand, which is really great. But when you were starting the company, so you have a product and you're ready to kind of start bringing it to market, what was the next step then to start getting it produced at scale? Because you need to, like you said, you were actually growing the fungi, right? So what does that look like then to be able to source those ingredients? Did you have to set up your own, I guess, manufacturing plant to do that? Or were you able to work with suppliers where you were finding the ingredients that you needed? And what does it look like now?
Well, we definitely had to do everything ourselves because I think one of the things is, there's no one else that does what we do, and so there's no, suppliers or plug-in solutions. So we had to build everything out ourselves. So we're based in Berkeley, California, which is where the company started, and we expanded our footprint. You have a manufacturing plant. And yeah, we had to figure it all out ourselves.
And so what does that look like now as you're getting, I think, more market penetration and really getting the word out about your product? Scaling is always a huge issue for entrepreneurs. How are you tackling that now and how are you able to, I guess, stay in line with your growth expectations and needs to, make it a successful business?
So we've been like good at planning out, and so we have a lot of capacity at the moment. And we'll figure out how to scale up as needed. Our process now is pretty streamlined. And so we've been able to really hone in on how to make the products, efficiently at scale, having the same quality, and yeah, just doing everything at scale. So we're lucky because we've been able to troubleshoot and do everything within, under our own roof. And then yeah, we'll see what the future holds.
So I totally forgot to ask you this in the beginning, but when you're first developing the product, you mentioned your mom as a chef. Who were your first taste testers for this? Where were you getting the first feedback of you were on target, or how did that come about?
Well, definitely my mom was part of that. But just also just like random people. I think like sometimes friends and family, or even like people in the office are not the best taste testers because they're familiar with the product, know what's happening. And so like we fed a lot of just like random people in our like office building that we didn't know. Like, hey, try this thing, let us know. And I think some of the most interesting feedback are from people who've never had meat before. They're like, I don't know what this tastes like, but it tastes good. And then you like get down to it and they're like, oh, you've never had meat before, but you still think this tastes good, which, is one of the kind of it's funny because a lot of people, a lot of meat eaters and sometimes vegans, they always say, hey, like, why don't you just make something that doesn't really taste like meat? Or like, why do vegans want to eat things that like look and taste like meat when they're vegan, right? It's because like as a society, it's like widely the protein source that people consume. It's cultural, like that's just how things are. And so having that frame of reference, having that point that's easy to swap, but also to try, um, and people like the taste of meat. Like a lot of these never eaten meat before people, they're like, I like it. I would eat it. I don't have a frame of reference. Oh, I guess this is probably the closest thing to eat the meat that I've eaten. And it like gets you to remember it's like I think people eat meat in spite of how it's made, not because of how it's made, And so it's because, it's a source of protein. It hits all of the needs, the cravings that we have. And it's great that we can now actually replicate that with fungi.
Well, you hit on something really important there, the cultural aspect of what we expect certain things to be a part of our life, like whether there are certain celebrations or even holidays. We have a big holiday coming up that's all based around turkey. And you know what? People expect there to be that. And you're right, they don't think about how it got from, let's say, farm to table, right? And because again, we're so far removed from our food chain in a lot of ways. People honestly don't know. Now, I was impressed that you mentioned you actually found people who had never had meat. I would like to meet these people and I would like to raise my children there because I didn't know that there was an enclave in the world where that was possible. And that would seem like a lovely upbringing to me. But
Well,
with that said,
India has a lot of people who have never eaten meat before.
that's crazy. I didn't even know that that was possible. But you mentioned something. You said, as far as like scaling now. So you have a website. People can buy the product through the website. Are you looking to get into some brick and mortar retailers, or what does that look like as far as like really getting the product out to mainstream?
We're mostly in the delis in grocery stores and in like restaurants and delis, like sandwich shops. So we that's actually mostly how people can get our products. And so if you go to our website, primeroots.com, you can go to our store locator and actually find what retailers near you carry us. And then some of them have online availability, so you can order like on Instacart or DoorDash as well.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's important too because I think sometimes people find I think they have more what do you want to say, trust when they see something at a restaurant. I know with some of the other plant-based burger products out there, they'll be featured in restaurants. People are like, "Oh, okay, I understand that. It's at a restaurant." So the trust aspect is there. So I think it's very smart to do that, to have it somewhere where they're already feeling, trustworthy and things like that. So you had mentioned, when you were starting up, developing this product, you had to start your own manufacturing. How were you able to put all that into place? Was this self-funded or did you go look for investors?
We are investor backed. And so our investors are great because, they really, really believed in the mission, and the impact that we could create, at scale. And that's really, like what they, were bought into. And so really, really mission aligned investors that help us, fund our development to make really, really clean products, unlike anything else that's on the market, but create a protein base and a platform that can be used to replicate any type of meat. And so we've started in deli with, ham, turkey, salami, bacon, pepperoni, like the deli mainstays, but the opportunity for what we're building at Prime Roots is so much greater. Like if you've been following us from the early days, you probably remember we've tinkered around with like seafood and all different types of meats. Really anything is possible. We're focusing on deli first because it's really processed. It's not great for you on the meat side or the alternative meat side. And so we're trying to make that better and then we can do anything. So, we're excited to be a protein company that can really feed billions and billions of people and not just feed them, but nourish people.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I didn't tell you earlier, but I'm actually from Philadelphia, and the national food of Philadelphia, besides the cheesesteak, is the hoagie, which is
Yep.
of course made with lunch meats, with deli meats and things like that. So it makes me laugh because I would love to be able to go into Philadelphia, into my neighborhood, and like bring some of these prime root sandwiches and not tell them and have them taste it and be like, oh, and then in fact I might do that to when I see my family. The next time I'm there, I might do that to them and just be like, "Hey, try this new sandwich that I brought. It's really, really good." And I won't tell them where I got it. I mean, kind of get their reaction because, deli meats are everything for the hoagie. But, you had mentioned also earlier about the environmental impact that you were really, aware of that and concerned about that and really wanted to make sure that your business was going to, support environmental sustainability. So what does that look like then? It's because you have a product that is fungi based. How overall, besides taking meat out of the equation, how else does it really help the environment? What are your sustainability goals with that?
So this is something that's really important to me to quantify. And so we actually hired a firm, a third-party firm, to come in and do a whole life cycle analysis. So they actually looked at everything from the packaging we used, obviously the ingredients, the process, and they really quantified like what is the impact that we're making in terms of land use, water use, carbon emissions, a whole bunch of other metrics compared to meat, but also other alternative meats. So we are significantly better, like I think we're like between 90 to 95% better in terms of land use, water, CO2, and a whole bunch of other metrics compared to meat. But we also found that we do a lot better in terms of many of those um, metrics compared to plant-based meats because our process, we're not hyper processing the plant from what it was. Like we are literally growing the fungi in a whole food format with that texture. Like we're really harnessing the power of nature to um, be able to make the foods that we know and love versus, I think trying to force plants to being like meat can sometimes be like square peg in a round hole. So we're excited that we've actually innovated in a way that can actually be more natural. Like where the innovation and the time that's been invested into developing the products has actually made a product that is more natural, that really aligns with, the values that we want to encourage in our food system going forwards.
You mentioned protein a couple of times. So talk a little bit more about that. Like, what do you think are some of the misconceptions about what we're going to call alternative proteins? And do you really think the protein that is in this product actually is a lot more healthy than what we're seeing as traditional proteins?
So there's two sides of that. There's like protein content, which everyone is obsessed about, and we've checked that box. I think like an average sandwich with prime roots meats has like 15 to 20 grams of protein. So we've checked the protein box. It's comparable to like regular meat and what you expect as a meat eater. But protein quality is actually something people don't talk about a lot. And I don't think it's really what people are talking about, but I think it's important to cover it. Like for a lot of plant-based proteins, the bioavailability is very low. So if you're eating like a soy-based protein, I love tofu and I love soy, so I'm not like a soy hater, but there are bioavailability challenges. Like if you're not supplementing appropriately, sometimes you can have difficulty with just the absorption of the nutrients and protein from plant sources like soy. Um, there have been scientific studies done on fungi-based proteins, and it has been shown that fungi-based proteins, I think probably because of how similar fungi and animals are, can actually build muscle better than like a gold standard animal protein like whey. So they've done studies with bodybuilders and literally like eating a fungi-based protein can build muscle better. So it's extremely bioavailable. Your body can convert the protein, and because we have a whole food source of protein, it also has a natural fiber in it still. So yeah, protein quality and protein quantity are most definitely very important. And like I said, like no compromises means like all of those like nooks and crannies and all the rocks are turned to make sure the product actually like checks all the boxes.
Very true that we seem to be more obsessed with the quantity than the quality. That's something I also hear a lot is how are you getting enough protein? And then they start, maybe just rattling off some stats they've heard. And I'm like, you don't even know what 10 grams is. Please stop acting like you have any concept of what that actually looks like on
Yeah.
your plate, or 20 grams, whatever. Like everybody's a scientist, thanks to social media. But I understand we're all still going through a process of learning and figuring things out. So, obviously starting your own business is always a challenge. So has there been any challenges that you've hit along the way that, you've like, wow, we really didn't expect that? And then the flip side of that, any successes that you happen that you're like, wow, we didn't expect that. And that was really cool.
Well, I think I started the business in 2018. And so that was before I would say like consumer awareness was extremely heightened around plant-based and interest was like heightened, with I think a lot of marketing dollars from the Beyond Meats and the Impossible Foods, which I mean, I think we should all credit them with raising awareness around how plant-based can be better, and hit the bar for meat eaters. I think the challenge is it wasn't backed up because their products are very processed. And there's been a lot of criticism around the ingredients, the processing, the healthfulness of them. And so I knew all those things were coming. when I started the business, which is why we spent, the 5 years working on the product. Even within that, quote unquote hype cycle, we didn't jump in and launch a product during that time because we knew we needed to stick to our guns. And I think the fallout from, a lot of the bad press around plant-based and how processed it is, I think the impact of that has been a lot larger. I mean, we've been lucky because we're positioned against ultra processed meats. I think it's been really challenging on just general the plant-based industry. And so I think the biggest thing that, folks can do if they're listening is support plant-based brands, right? Like, support products that are moving the agenda in the way that you want them to move. And encourage your meat eating, meat loving friends, family, etc., to try these products as well. I mean, that's going to be where the impact is made. And I think that we have to be more inclusive, meaning bringing more people into the fold to embracing, these products, or all the products are going to go extinct.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly all of that. And not only, I also wanted to mention something, and I just had to run into the other room to grab the products, but the products, I'm holding them up right now. If you guys are looking at the YouTube video, I'm trying to get it on camera here. They look so good. Like the meat products, they look so good, which I really loved because I'm finding sometimes when with the alternative meats, the new innovative meats, like they don't look good, right? Like that's one of the complaints about something like a tofurkey. It looks scary, but when I saw yours, I'm like, wow, this looks good. Like it looks appetizing in the package, which was really, a big it was something big for me because they always say like you eat with your eyes first, right? So, and if the product didn't look good, like nobody was going to eat it. So how were you able to get that beautiful, I think, marbleization and color with all of these without doing all the additives? Because the product's just so pretty too.
A lot of trial and error. Yeah, I mean, I don't, I don't can't spill the secret sauce, but it did take a long time to figure it out. And like if you were holding up the bacon, like the white strip is actually primarily fat. So when you cook the bacon, it will actually curl and crisp. We have a pepperoni, same thing. It will like cup on a pizza. Like yeah, the salami, all of the meats are you can cook all of the meats. So like there are some meats out there where if you cook them, they kind of disintegrate, like they don't function the same way that you would expect meats to function, whereas ours like work exactly the same way. So like if you're from Philly, if you had like a Taylor, like ham roll or a fried bologna or fried salami sandwich, like you can do all of that with the Prime Roots products. Like it does work the same way. And the way you get it in stores, it's usually in a whole loaf and they get sliced or chopped up like in store to make into like the salads or sandwiches, or you can bring home any of like you can ask for quarter-pound thinly sliced, which is how I like it.
That's fantastic because it totally does give you the experience. Like it's the familiar experience of like having the deli meats. And like I said, the smell and just the look of it was just so on target. I was like, wow, this is really something good. So, if you guys are interested in trying it, which I highly recommend, please, Kimberlie, give us again the website and tell us how they can find this product.
So if you go to our website, primeroots.com, there's a Find Us button, which is our store locator. You can find where our products are carried. So it's found in usually grocery stores, deli sections, or in like local sandwich shops.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. You have taught us so much, not only about fungi, but just about the fact that you can have clean plant sources that make a product that people really want to eat and they enjoy. So thank you very much for your innovation. And we can't wait to see what happens next.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks for listening to the Wild Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.